Hello Tech Pros, episode 94.
If you're a leader out there, you need to be asking yourself what I'm working on, what I'm trying to accomplish, or trying to help the company accomplish. Is it clearly communicated? Is there a level of clarity all the way down the entire organization?
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started. Hello Tech Pros, this is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Jason Burt. Happy Wednesday, Jason.
Thank you very much, Chad. Nice to be here.
Good to have you. Jason Burt owns Evolve Holdings, LLC, and has over 20 years of leadership and culture change experience based off learnings from working with Toyota. Jason has worked in many industries and has been able to use his learning to help guide many companies to increase profitability through implementation of the Toyota philosophies. Jason has worked in hundreds of companies and industries ranging from aerospace to commercial farming. So, Jason, this is really, really interesting to me because we're talking to tech pros here, and my personal background is in software development. So I did software development for a long, long time, for about 20 years, and moved into IT leadership, and for the longest time, it's all been about, hey, guys, let's look at what Toyota has done. They have built these lean principles, and now the agile development methodologies are coming out of that, and all of these things that I've heard throughout my career, like fourth and fifth hand, right? But
Sure.
you have seen these actually in practice firsthand. So I can't wait to get into the discussion and find out all the awesome stuff that you've learned.
All right, sounds good.
Cool. Well, today is Leadership Wednesday on what is this podcast? On Hello Tech Pros. And we're here to find out what it takes to be a great leader, an effective leader. Now, before we can establish what an effective leader is, I always like to start with a horrible boss, just to kind of compare and contrast, right? We all have these moments, these bosses in our careers where, man, it was just a struggle. The struggle is real, and we've had to put up with some doozies. Now, we don't want to name names. We don't want to throw people under the bus and focus on the negativity. But if you can, I'd like to get your story of a horrible boss that you've worked with and what that experience was like. And then we'll get into, some of the lessons that you've learned from that.
Sure, that sounds good, Chad. I have to say, I've been pretty blessed, pretty fortunate to have a career where the majority of the leaders I've worked for have been very mentoring, very focused on guiding me and helping me develop into a better leader. But I have been able to have some experiences like you talked about. It was not a direct boss, but it was a peer of mine that I got to witness on a daily basis and how he worked with his team. And I happen to be very good friends with a lot of the people that worked for him. The gentleman was very much a typical command and control type leader. Took everything upon himself, micromanaged all the different employees at a level that really stifled the creativity. It was an engineering department, stifled the creativity of the engineering department, and really just kind of shut down the group in general. All the way to the extent where anytime someone needed some new hardware, whether it be a phone, whether it be a computer, whether it be any piece of equipment, he would literally, if one of his engineers it was time for them to get a new computer, he would literally take the new computer for himself and give them his old computer.
Oh, man.
The level of control that I witnessed with this leader, it was really mind-boggling when you think of today's leadership environment and how important our employees are and how important it is for us to bring them in and empower them and help develop them to become better in their roles. To watch someone act in that manner was just a very wild experience at the time, and I had to you know, sit because he was my peer. I just sit and experience it firsthand and just kind of shake my head. So that's probably one of the good examples that I have of some pretty poor leadership experience.
Man, we've talked several times on the show about this command and control philosophy and the folks that just kind of want to micromanage and stifle the creativity and really be very micromanaging and hands-on. But I've never heard of a story of a manager who requested new equipment for his employees and then took it for himself and then gave the employees his old crap.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
ridiculous.
Yeah, so he always was top of the line with the gear. That's for sure. He was always right there.
Well, I got a question. So was there any possible way there could be some sort of legitimate excuse for this? Like he was an engineer himself. He was like a leader manager, a hands-on manager where he was actually doing the work too, and he needed the latest and greatest just as much as everybody else, and so he got first dibs. Or was this purely just an ego trip?
I think this was purely an ego trip.
Yeah.
Very much self-justified. I mean, in many cases, the computer that he was swapping out was maybe a computer that he had just received a few months earlier, where the other employee had one for a couple of years. So it wasn't that he was starved for for resources that he was working with. It was just more of a it was pretty much an understood rule within his department that he will always have the newest, latest, and greatest technology, and that's just the way it's going to happen.
Okay, so that makes absolutely no sense to me. I understand, okay, you want to have latest and greatest, but things aren't going to change that much in a couple of months,
That's right.
So I'm just thinking about the productivity loss of constantly having to refresh and like reinstall your things and move your serial keys around and get all your emails signed up and everything else that you do. How did this individual get any work done if every couple of months he's having to reinstall? I hate getting new computers.
Well,
I don't want to do it unless mine is just completely tanking and trashing, and then I'll be all right. I guess I got to move everything again. But that's a pain. That's a pain in the butt to move everything.
Yeah, the one luxury that he had is we were literally a $1 billion company, so there was an entire team of IT resources that were there to cater to the employees' needs. So that burden didn't necessarily fall on him. It fell on other people that he just, made the phone call and said, okay, we're getting this new computer, swap this and swap it in this manner. So the burden never really fell on him, and it wasn't really as much of an inconvenience on his side as it was our IT department. So, just the realities of the business, I guess.
Man, that just, for me, that's taking it from bad to worse. So now he's putting the burden on the rest of the organization, and the whole company is paying for.
That's right.
Okay, so I want to shake off this kind of bad mojo, and because I don't want to get super negative on this episode, but wow, I'm blown away. So what did you learn from this experience of sitting next to this individual and watching this happen?
Well, I think, this was early on in my experience where Toyota had started working with this company and became our mentors. And, as I'm learning more and more from Toyota at the time about, how to involve employees and just really how they value people as the most important resource in any company and that type of approach, for me, I was a pretty young leader at the time, new to a leadership role, learning my way. And it gave me probably just, that and other experiences, that contrast to be able to look and say, okay, this is what I'm learning from Toyota. This is what they're preaching. They're trying to develop us to become this type of leader. And then being able to see experiences like that and understand and see the impact that it had on his department, on his employees, the productivity, the morale, to be able to see that and contrast that compared to what we were trying to do overall as an organization, where we were trying to lead and where we were trying to develop ourselves. It just gave me, along with other experiences, a great contrast to be able to learn from and see how those negative experiences truly impact the organization.
Man, That's great, because that's exactly what we want to do here on the show, right? Is give some contrast to what are horrible bosses doing, and let's turn that around and say, okay, now what do effective leaders do, and what's the difference? It's black and white. We can see it. So now that you've been working with Toyota for quite a while, you've learned a lot from them, and then you've taken those lessons learned and you implemented it in other organizations. Kind of give us the breakdown of your perspective of what is the Toyota process, leadership process, all about.
Well, there's a lot to Toyota in the way that they approach leadership, the way that they approach business. You know, they have a set of philosophies, you know, that kind of guide them as a company. When you think of it, their philosophies are customer first. People are the most important resource, which is one that's, you know, obviously a lot to what we're talking about right now. Continuous improvement is a way of life, and focusing on the shop floor. Those are kind of four philosophies that guide a lot of what they do. And you know, when you think of those philosophies, it's very the people are the most important resource. That's something that not a lot of companies think that way. They think a lot about their other assets within the company, and they don't necessarily give 100% focus on how do we develop our people and create more value within our employees. So, you know, there's a lot of things with Toyota, both from a technical standpoint on how they design processes and their problem-solving approach, which is, you know, probably what most people gravitate to when they kind of skim the surface of what Toyota is doing well. They've been able to apply that throughout their entire value stream, all the way from new product development, all the way through and out through the sales organization, and you know, most importantly through their manufacturing is where they're known for, and how efficient in those processes and fixing the problems. But the biggest thing from a leadership standpoint is just the value and the approach that they take with their employees. I'm kind of a storyteller, and I love telling stories, but you know, they have the philosophy when they say shop floor focus. Their leaders are expected to be on the shop floor, wherever that is, whether that's in engineering, and when I say shop floor, it's where the work is being done, whether that's in engineering, whether that's in manufacturing, but they're expected to be there, involved in the process, working side by side with their team members and helping them and guiding them. At one point in time, I was traveling and working with some suppliers for Toyota, and I got a phone call, and a very, very high leader within Toyota kind of did a surprise visit to me. And here I am on the shop floor, and this guy is in a suit and tie, and he's on the floor crawling under a machine with me to help me understand the problem I'm trying to solve.
Wow.
That's the type of leadership that they expect at all levels within the organization. And most people don't see that, right? They go to the dealer, and that's the face of Toyota they see. Until you really dig under Toyota and understand their philosophies, the way that they treat their employees, the way that they develop their employees and help guide them, you don't get to see that in a lot of ways. But they are very people-focused, very employee-focused, and want to develop their employees every step of the way, as much as possible.
Man, that's so awesome to hear about. And for our audience, you know, it's pretty split between the number of folks who have who work in organizations where you kind of move up through the ranks, right? And you start as a contributor, and you're doing your technical job, whether it's a software developer, a DBA, or a network admin, or whatever it is. But you're moving up through the ranks, and then eventually you get to the point in your career where, like, gosh, if I want to move up anymore, like, I need to move into architecture or management or something. But regardless of the position, it's still a leadership position, and they're still guiding people and influencing people, and they have that hands-on experience. And then there's the other side, where they work in organizations where the doers just do the work, and the organization hires in managers to manage and kind of keep the two apart and different. And there might be a one-off case where an individual like came from the trenches and moved up, but for the most part, it's just they're looking for people who have good people skills and management skills or leadership or administrative skills or whatever they're looking for, but it's not necessarily people who know the job of the people who are doing the job.
Sure. Yeah, and and I think there has to be a balance there. Can every leader know every last detail of the work that the team is doing? Of course not, because that's just not a reasonable expectation. And the whole point of having the team is being able to offset each other's skill sets, and as a collective group be able to accomplish a bigger goal. But I do think it's so important that those leaders are intimately involved. And at the end of the day, it's important that they understand the struggles and the problems that their team are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. That is, in my opinion, one of the most important roles of a leader is, I see my role, and other leaders, I believe, should see their role. You're there to knock down the barriers, knock down the walls, help them solve the problems that are not allowing them to be effective on a day-to-day basis. I don't have the right tool. Every time I, do X function, it doesn't work. Whatever the role is and whatever the action is, it's, as a leader, you're there to help them become better employees, better at their job, and develop them, to potentially take on more responsibility or more skills and more role within the organization. So with that, you have to be intimately involved with what they're doing at some level to be able to understand those problems and be able to fix them and solve them and help them knock those barriers down.
Yeah, we've talked about this from the servant leadership perspective,
Mm-hmm.
where you're not there to generate reports, right? As a leader, you're not there to necessarily to hit the KPIs directly. Like, you're not doing the job, your people are doing the job, and you need to figure out what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and help them kind of level up their game.
That's right. Definitely.
Cool. So what can we do, like, if we're in a position where we're set up to lead individuals in an area where we don't have that experience? Let's say, whatever our background was, I came from software development, but let's say that I was put in a position of, okay, now I'm actually literally managing people or leading people that are on a shop floor, like from a mechanical engineering perspective. I know nothing about mechanical engineering, but if I was needed in that role, what can I do to really get in touch with the individuals that are doing the job and understand where they're coming from and what their pain points are?
I think the big thing is just, spending time with them. And when you're spending time with them, you're listening and learning, right? Enough leaders, in my opinion, they get, especially when they get hired in, they get drug into meetings, and, before you know it, your day from 8 o'clock till 5 o'clock is back-to-back meetings where you're trying to manage a organization from a conference room or from your office. Which is just, in my opinion, one of the worst things that can happen, right? That gets away from that Toyota philosophy of shop floor focus. How do I get out there where the work's being done and actually engage? I think a leader has to set time aside, especially if you're a new leader in a new area that you're unfamiliar with and you're still learning. And I would say even for leaders that have been in a role for a long time, because things are constantly changing. But you have to spend time and take the time to learn. Like I said earlier, if you're not a mechanical engineer, are you going to learn everything about mechanical engineering? No, but if I spend an hour with one of my team members and watch them go through some of the process and ask them questions and hear what they're struggling with, what's going well, what's not going well, the amount of knowledge and learning that you can gain in just that simple hour to be able to be a more effective leader and know, wow, I have to fix this issue. Gosh, every half hour their computer crashes because they don't have enough, the computer's not set up the right way and they're constantly have to reboot. I actually had an organization that had that situation. I mean, little things like that they deal with on a day-to-day basis, but because most companies are kind of geared and wired saying problems are bad, don't tell me about problems. I don't want to hear about them. Just work through them. That's the way most employees and team members are kind of conditioned. Instead of saying, no, I want to hear about all your problems because I'm a leader that's here to fix them. That's my role. Mm-hmm. So spending time with them and trying to understand and learn as much as you can. I think that's the best advice that I can give for any leader, I think.
Man, that is awesome, Jason. Thank you so much for sharing that. In just a moment, I want to ask you about some of the common problems and issues that you see that businesses and leaders face as you're going out and consult and helping them kind of bump up their leadership to the next level, or remove the obstacles that are in their businesses. But first, we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Burdine. Siri and OK Google are fun for party tricks, but 97% of smartphone users don't like talking to their phones in public. It's kind of weird. When was the last time you were at the mall and heard someone say, "Siri, what's my wife's dress size?" Or, "OK Google, where did I park my car?" Some things are better left unspoken. Burdine remembers the things you care about and reminds you discreetly through text messages. Names, dates, places, ideas, to-do lists. Burdine never forgets and is always there to remind you. You don't need to install an app, just text Burdine a statement and she'll remember. Text her a question and she'll answer. Burdine is the only contact you have to have on your phone. Meet Burdine at burdine.com. That's BURDENE.com, or text Burdine to 480-418-1411. Outside the U.S., be sure to use the country code +1. So for non-U.S. residents, text +1 480-418-1411 with a message Burdine. Okay, we're back with Jason Burt. Jason has experience directly working with Toyota and learning their lean methodology and learning their culture of leadership, and has really seen it firsthand and has been able to take those lessons learned and apply them to hundreds of other companies to help them, up their game and get better at leadership and get better at business. So, Jason, we talked about some examples prior to the break of what a great leader embodies, and that's that servant leadership, and really being there for your team and really wanting to communicate with them and ask them about the problems, and not managing from the conference room, but managing from the shop floor and really understand what's going on in the team at the individual level. So as you've been consulting, as you've been going around helping other companies in these areas, what are some of the common problems that you see that maybe we can address here today?
I think probably one of the most common issues I see with companies I'm working with, many companies will have a vision or a strategic plan at a very high level. And then there'll be a lot of work that's happening, down at the very operational level, and very tactical activity. But there's usually a very big gap between connecting those two. If you go and you look at the work that's actually happening at a tactical level, is that work actually connecting all the way up to the strategic vision or the plan? And when they're looking at the strategic plan, are they considering, what is the tactical activity that needs to happen to be able to make that, to be able to execute on that strategy? So I see this gap between how organizations manage and connect all the different levels within the organization. And I think, what ends up happening, or where the actual problem is as leaders, we put a lot of time into the business side of things. What is our very specific business plan from a financial standpoint, revenue plan, sales strategy, maybe even from a capacity standpoint at a very high level. But we don't put a process in place on how we're going to manage as leaders, how we're going to lead the organization, and how we're going to connect all the different people that need to be involved in knowing what they need to do. So one of the things that Toyota is very good at is they're very good at connecting all levels within the organization and making sure that they're all extremely clear on what their part of the pie is, what they need to do that will help at the highest level execute on the strategic plan. And what they've done is they design processes that help leaders accomplish that. They have essentially standardized work for all levels in the organization. As a leader, we talked about carving out time to spend time with the team or to solve problems. They have that built into their way that they lead. From noon till X time on this day, I'm going to do nothing but spend time on this area of the organization that I'm responsible for and help understand and solve problems. So they've designed a management process that helps connect all the way through the organization. Many of the companies I consult with, they'll have the strategic plan, and I'll ask them how it's going, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, we're doing great. Here's all the things that we're doing," and then you go down and actually look at the work that's going on, and it has nothing to do with what they're trying to accomplish as an organization. So there's this big disconnect. So I help them try and put this management system in place and help them design a process to connect the organization. Because we all know, the biggest thing that we can do as leaders is get as many people all working towards the same vision, because that's going to allow us to be much more successful.
Man, I so resonate with that, and I so appreciate that feedback because, in my experience in the past, I have seen big Fortune 100 organizations, $7-10 billion companies, where the strategic direction, is validated once a year, and there's this huge strategic, goal setting process at the beginning of the year, but it's very, very pie in the sky, right? It's very much, hey, we're going to increase productivity of our units of work by 11%, and we want to decrease our G&A budget by X number of percent, and these are the top level things that we want to do. And then you go down to the line level supervisors who are actually supervising the people who are cranking the wrenches and punching the code and doing all that kind of stuff. And these folks have a disconnect of what that really means and how to actually accomplish that. And they're going, okay, here's all the things that I've wanted to do in the past. I've wanted to get rid of this legacy technology, and I've wanted to implement this newfangled gizmo, right? And I've wanted to do all this other stuff. So here's my excuse, or here's my rationale for now I can go forward with my favorite pet project, or the shiny object that I've always wanted to do, or get rid of this thing that I hate supporting. Now we can make a shift because we have an excuse, because the goals have allowed me to. Yep. And what I've seen is that doesn't work. So have you seen that before? And how do we counter that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've worked with many large companies, and one company that I had most of my experience with, a company called Herman Miller. I spent 15 years there, and that's where Toyota was our partner and was in every week working with us. That company, I love them to death. I learned a lot about the organization, but early on, that was one of the struggles I think they had, is they would come out with this is going back 20 years. They would have a strategic vision, and then 2 years later it would change, and it never even got to a point where it really resonated all the way through the organization. And at that line level, like you said, we didn't know exactly what we needed to do to help execute it. So we would make some assumptions. Well, we think it means this, along with hundreds of other leaders making those assumptions, and there was never this clarity of, yes, this is what you should be working on, and if you're working on this, and so and so over here is working on this, we will be successful as a company. And that was one of the big shifts for Herman Miller. I think they've gotten much more aligned with Toyota's help, but I still just about every company I walk into, whether it's a small, mom and pop shop that has, 50 employees, or whether it's a $200 million company with 400 employees, that gap is very, very common. And there's this strategic level that'll happen, the strategic vision, but it never really rolls all the way down to with clarity.
So we're talking to technical professionals here on this podcast. That's our
Sure.
audience. And, a lot of people, some of the folks are working for a technology company, right? They might be working for, a Microsoft or an Apple or something where the technology is the product that they're producing. And other people are working for an organization where the technology is not the main product. They work maybe in an IT department that just supports the overall organization, but the overall organization is doing something completely different. Maybe it's manufacturing, maybe it's energy, maybe it's, who knows, whatever it
Sure.
is. So in that case, are there specific things that the IT folks or the technical folks can do to align their work or get better connected to the strategic vision of what the overall organization is doing and what the technical folks need to do down at the line level?
Yeah, I think, the first thing is to, when we're looking at a strategic plan for any organization, whether that is their product, like you said, or whether it's more of a support function for the organization, we have to understand how that technology relates to that strategic plan. Is it, I will use a manufacturing environment for an example, right? Many companies that I've worked with are in the middle of or thinking about some type of MRP or ERP system to help manage the organization. Understanding what that means for the organization at the strategic level and connecting it, they have to, the IT group has to be an integral part of that process. I've seen those decisions be made by leaders, by owners of companies. We're going to choose this because I met him on a plane and he said he had the best MRP system. And then you go to the IT leader and finally get him engaged, and very quickly he's saying, "Oh, that's not the one I would choose for X reason, Y reason, and Z reason." And then all of a sudden, already you have a disconnect. Is it really meeting those strategic goals? Is it the best tool for the process? So IT groups have to be, they're so integrated across any organization at every level, every employee. They're touching and helping every single one of them. So they're an integral part of a plan. And if there is a strategic plan in place for your company and it doesn't have an IT portion of it, if you're the leader of that group, you need to be raising your hand and saying, what do I need to do here to get involved with what my work means to this plan? Because it is so, at this point in time, where we're at with technology, you're touching every single employee. So we have to figure out what your work and what that means to the entire company. So I don't know if that answers your question, Chad, or not, but I think we have to just raise the flag and get involved.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. That is so true, and I think we could go down a whole nother rabbit hole here to talk about how to do that, right? How to get engaged with the business, how to create those relationships, and how to build partnerships between the technical folks and the business folks. But maybe we'll have you back for another episode, maybe a People Friday episode of Hello Tech Pros, where we talk about relationships and communication and stuff like that. But for today, do you have any final words of wisdom for the audience? The best way that we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
As far as final words of wisdom, we kind of touched on that connection. I'm going to talk to, if you're a leader out there, you need to be asking yourself, what I'm working on, what I'm trying to accomplish, or trying to help the company accomplish, is it clearly communicated? Is there a level of clarity all the way down the entire organization? If you walk up to someone, do they know, if I do this, it's helping the company? I'm helping the company towards the strategy. As a leader, you need to be asking yourself that question. And if that answer is not yes, then you have work to do. You need to put a process in place to make sure that those messages, because they change frequently. If you're doing strategic planning correctly, every quarter, every 6 months, every year, those are changing, and that has to be filtering all the way down through the organization to help everyone else adjust as well. So if you're a leader, you need to be asking yourself that question. If you're an individual contributor within the organization, you need to be asking the question of the leader that you report to, how does my work add up to that strategic plan that I'm hearing about? Because you want to make sure that you're aligned and doing everything you can, because that's going to help you be more successful in the eyes of the company and provide more value to the company, which as an individual contributor, I think most people, that's what they want to be able to do. It's going to help you as an individual professionally, and kind of self-serving, and then also help the company. So I think both sides of the equation, they need to be asking that question, what that connection looks like today.
Awesome.
And then as far as how to contact me, I'm on Twitter. My handle is at EHIP, EHIIP, lean. You can also go to my website, which is EHIP, EHIIP, LLC.com, and EHIP Consulting, EHIIP Consulting.com. Of course, LinkedIn as well to connect with me. And just a quick FYI, EHIP, it's just an acronym for Evolve Holdings Investing in Potential. So it's an easy way to remember it.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome. Jason, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. I really value your insight and wisdom and appreciate you taking time out of your busy Wednesday to spend time with us.
Well, thank you very much, Chad. I appreciate the good conversation.
You bet. Tech Pros, man, just really focus in here on what Jason's talking about, especially his words of wisdom. If you don't know exactly how your job relates to what the strategic business objectives are, if you don't know what the strategic business objectives are, raise your hand and ask somebody. And that doesn't matter. I mean, it does. If you're an individual contributor, if you're a leader of a team, or you're a manager of a big organization, if it's not perfectly crystal clear, ask. If it is perfectly crystal clear, or you got a good understanding of it, then tell everybody else what it is, because I guarantee you there's people that are too afraid to raise their hand and ask, and they don't know. And the more we can spread the knowledge around, the better the overall organization is going to be. Everybody's going to get connected, or they're going to say, you know what, that's kind of right, but you're missing a couple of things, and let me fill you in on the details, and everything will be awesome. Everything will be better. You've been listening to Jason Burt, and I'm Chad Bostic, and until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/94. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Leadership Wednesday, but tomorrow, my featured guest and I talk about technology. On Friday, people and communication. Saturday, entrepreneurship. Sunday, being unplugged. And then next week, we kick it off with Motivation Monday, followed by Tuesday, productivity. And then we're back again on Wednesday to discuss leadership. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.